Have you ever looked back at your childhood and felt that there was something extraordinary about it? Something beyond the ordinary play and laughter? Perhaps it was the way you marveled at the stars, how you felt like you didn't quite belong, or how your imagination seemed boundless. These moments weren't just fleeting quirks of youth, they were signs, divine whispers, calling you toward a greater purpose. Today, let's explore 5 profound signs from your childhood that prove you were chosen by something greater, something sacred. Would you like me to refine this further or continue with the rest of the speech? As a child, you may have felt a deep and unexplainable sense of wonder about the world around you. This wasn't just curiosity, it was something far more profound. There were moments when you would look at the sky, perhaps at the stars scattered across the velvet darkness, and feel an inexplicable pull, as though you were part of something vast and eternal. It might have been a fascination with the tiniest details, a butterfly's delicate wings, the intricate pattern of a leaf, or the rhythmic crash of waves on the shore. These weren't ordinary experiences. They were glimpses into the profound interconnectedness of all things, a recognition, however faint, of the divine mystery woven into existence. This sense of wonder didn't come from nowhere. It was a part of you as natural as your breath, as essential as your heartbeat. While other children may have brushed past the ordinary miracles of life, you lingered. You asked questions that couldn't easily be answered. Why does the sky change color? Where do the stars go during the day? What keeps the moon hanging in the sky? These weren't just the musings of an inquisitive child, they were the stirrings of a soul aware of its connection to the infinite. Even in the simplest moments you found beauty. A puddle wasn't just water on the ground, it was a portal reflecting the sky and the trees. A pebble in your hand wasn't merely a stone, it was a story of time, shaped by the earth, polished by rivers. These moments of awe were signs of a divine spark within you, a reminder that you were not here by accident. You were chosen to see the world differently, to feel its pulse, to recognize its sacred rhythm. Think about how this wonder made you feel. It wasn't just about curiosity, it was about connection. You felt alive in a way that words couldn't capture. In those moments, you weren't separate from the world, you were a part of it, an essential thread in the grand tapestry of existence. This awareness wasn't something you learned, it was something you knew deep within, as though it had been placed there by a hand unseen, a voice unheard. As you grew, the world may have tried to dampen this wonder, to box it in with rules, logic, and explanations. You were told that the stars were just burning gases, that a butterfly was just an insect, that the ocean was just water. But deep down, you knew there was more. You felt it in your bones, in the quiet spaces of your mind, in the moments when the world seemed to pause, and all you could do was marvel. This wonder was your first teacher, your first connection to the divine. It was a reminder that life itself is a miracle, that even the smallest details are filled with meaning. When you felt this wonder, you were tapping into something greater than yourself. You were opening a door to a deeper understanding, a truth that cannot be measured or quantified, only felt and lived. Even now, as you look back, you can still feel echoes of that wonder. It calls to you, urging you to remember that childlike awe, to reconnect with the sacred beauty of life. That sense of wonder wasn't a fleeting phase, it was a sign, a beacon, pointing you toward your purpose. It was proof that you were chosen, not in the sense of superiority or separation, but in the sense of belonging to something infinite and eternal. To hold on to that wonder, to carry it with you as you navigate the complexities of adulthood, is to honor the divine within you. It is to recognize that the same force that shaped the stars, the oceans, and the mountains also shaped you. And just as the stars shine without question, as the ocean moves without hesitation, so too are you meant to shine and move in harmony with the divine plan. That wonder was never just a childhood gift, it was a lifelong reminder of who you truly are. As a child, there may have been moments when you felt different, like you didn't quite belong. It wasn't a sadness necessarily, but rather a quiet awareness that you were walking a path unseen by others. Maybe you sat on the fringes of a group, watching rather than participating, not out of shyness, but because you felt the pull of something deeper, something beyond the surface chatter. Or perhaps you sensed that the world around you didn't fully understand you, and you weren't always sure you understood it either. This feeling wasn't a flaw, it was a sign, a whisper from the universe that your path was uniquely yours. You might have felt like an observer, taking in the world with a profound sensitivity. While others laughed or played, you noticed the way the sunlight filtered through the trees or the way the wind carried the scent of rain. The way you felt connected to these subtle moments, yet disconnected from the busyness of the world, was evidence that your spirit resonated at a different frequency. It was as though you were attuned to a melody that others couldn't hear, a song playing just beneath the surface of everyday life. This feeling of not belonging wasn't loneliness, it was preparation. You were being guided, shaped, and molded for something that required you to see the world differently. If you had fit perfectly into every situation, you might have lost that unique perspective, that ability to stand apart and see the world as it truly is. It's often the ones who feel out of place who are most attuned to the spaces in between the gaps where the divine can be found. Perhaps there were times when you asked questions that seemed too big for your age, questions that made adults pause. Why are we here? What's the meaning of all this? These questions weren't born out of rebellion or restlessness. They came from a deep knowing that life was more than what was visible on the surface. And when the answers you received didn't satisfy you, it wasn't because you were difficult or ungrateful. It was because your soul knew there was more, and it was unwilling to settle for anything less than truth. You might have found solace in solitude, where the world's expectations fell away and you could simply be. In those quiet moments there was a sense of peace, a connection to something greater than yourself. Maybe you felt it while sitting under a tree, watching clouds drift by, or lying awake at night listening to the stillness. These weren't moments of isolation but of communion with the divine. In those times you weren't alone, you were with the infinite. As you grew older, this sense of not belonging may have felt heavier. The world likes to categorize, to fit people into neat boxes, and you might have felt like you didn't fit anywhere. But that resistance, that inability to conform, was a gift. It was a reminder that you were meant to carve your own path, to follow the guidance within rather than the expectations of the world. Looking back, you can see that this feeling wasn't something to be fixed or solved. It was a sign of your sacred journey, a journey that required you to stand apart so you could see clearly. It was an invitation to trust in the divine plan, even when it felt uncertain or uncomfortable. Now, as you reflect on those childhood moments of not belonging, you can begin to see them for what they truly were, a calling. They were the universe's way of setting you apart, not to make you feel small or excluded, but to prepare you for something extraordinary. To feel like you didn't belong wasn't a rejection, it was an affirmation that you were chosen to bring something unique into the world. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to shine, to walk a path that only you could walk, guided by the divine spark within you. As a child, you had a mind that seemed to hold entire worlds within it. Your imagination wasn't just an escape, it was a gateway. You could transform an ordinary day into a grand adventure, a simple room into a kingdom, and a stick into a sword. You saw possibilities where others saw limits. This boundless creativity wasn't random or fleeting, it was evidence of the divine spark within you, the same creative force that brought the universe into existence. It was as though the infinite had placed a piece of itself inside you, urging you to dream, to create, and to explore beyond the ordinary. There were moments when you lost track of time, fully immersed in your imaginary worlds. These weren't just idle fantasies, they were sacred spaces where your spirit could roam free, unencumbered by the rules and restrictions of the material world. In these moments you were closer to the divine than you realized. You were tapping into the limitless potential of your soul, accessing a wellspring of inspiration that connected you to something far greater than yourself. Your imagination wasn't just about play, it was a tool for understanding and experiencing the world in ways others might overlook. While some saw a cloud as a passing shadow in the sky, you saw a dragon, a ship, or a doorway to another realm. While others read stories and stopped at the words on the page, you stepped into those stories, living them, feeling them, and expanding them in your mind. This ability to see beyond the surface was a gift, a sign that you were in tune with the deeper layers of reality. Perhaps you were drawn to creating, whether through art, writing, music, or simply building things with your hands. This wasn't just about making something, it was about expressing the divine energy within you. Every story you wrote, every picture you drew, every structure you built was a reflection of the infinite possibilities you carried inside. These acts of creation were a way of aligning yourself with the divine creator, echoing the sacred act of bringing something new into being. Sometimes this vivid imagination may have set you apart from others. Maybe you were told to come back to reality, or that you were too dreamy. But the truth is, your imagination wasn't a distraction, it was your connection to a higher reality, a realm of infinite potential where all things are possible. It was a reminder that the world we see is only one layer of existence, and that beneath it lies a vast and limitless field of possibilities. You may have used your imagination to find solutions to problems, to make sense of difficult situations, or to comfort yourself during challenging times. This wasn't just a coping mechanism, it was a sign of resilience and wisdom far beyond your years. It showed that you were guided by something deeper, something that allowed you to see beyond your immediate circumstances and tap into the divine truth that all things are temporary and all challenges can be transformed. Even now, as you reflect on your childhood, you can see that your imagination wasn't just a phase or a trait, it was a calling. It was the universe's way of reminding you of your divine heritage, of your ability to co-create with the infinite. It was a sign that you were chosen, not just to dream, but to bring those dreams into reality, to use your creative gifts to make the world a more beautiful, compassionate, and inspired place. And the child who imagined entire worlds still lives within you. That creativity, that wonder, that connection to the infinite hasn't gone anywhere. It's waiting for you to rediscover it, to embrace it, and to use it as a tool for transformation. Your imagination wasn't just a part of your childhood, it's a sacred gift that has always been and will always be a part of your divine purpose. It's a reminder that the same force that created the stars, the oceans, and the mountains also created you, with the ability to dream, to create, and to bring forth beauty into the world. As a child, there may have been moments when the world around you seemed to pause and an unexplainable peace would wash over you. These moments didn't arrive because of anything you did, they came unbidden, like whispers from the universe. Perhaps you were lying in the grass, staring up at the sky as clouds drifted lazily by, and you felt an overwhelming stillness, as though time itself had stopped. Or maybe it was the quiet hum of the night, with stars twinkling above, that filled you with a sense of profound calm. These experiences weren't random, they were sacred. They were the universe reaching out, reminding you of your connection to something infinite. These moments of peace were different from happiness or excitement. They didn't depend on external events or circumstances. They emerged from within, as though some ancient part of you recognized the beauty and perfection of the present moment. It was in these moments that you felt whole, as if every worry, every fear, every question simply melted away. This wasn't a fleeting feeling, it was a glimpse into the eternal, a reminder that beneath all the noise and chaos of life, there exists a deep and abiding stillness. You might not have understood it at the time, but these moments were gifts. They were the universe's way of showing you that peace isn't something you have to chase, it's something that resides within you. It's always there, waiting for you to notice it. As a child, you were naturally attuned to this truth because you hadn't yet been burdened by the complexities and distractions of the adult world. You were open, present, and receptive, able to feel the divine rhythm of life without effort. These moments of peace often came in simple, everyday experiences. Sitting by a stream and listening to the water flow, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, or watching leaves dance in the wind. In those moments, you weren't thinking about the past or the future, you were fully immersed in the now. This presence wasn't something you had to work for, it was a natural state of being, a reflection of the divine essence within you. Sometimes these moments might have felt profound in their quietness, as if the entire universe was speaking to you in silence. You didn't need words or explanations, you simply knew, deep in your soul, that you were a part of something vast and sacred. This knowing wasn't something you could articulate, but it filled you with a sense of comfort and belonging. As you grew older, the demands of life may have pulled you away from this natural state of peace. The world, with all its noise and busyness, may have made it harder to find those still moments. But that peace never left you. It's still there, just beneath the surface, waiting for you to return to it. Those childhood moments of tranquility were a reminder that this peace is always accessible, that it's a part of who you are. Reflecting on those moments now, you can see them for what they truly were: a connection to the divine. They were signs that you were chosen to carry this peace within you, to remember it and share it with the world. The universe wasn't just showing you peace, it was entrusting you with it, asking you to keep it alive in a world that often forgets how to be still. Even in the midst of life's chaos, you can return to that stillness. You can find it in a quiet breath, in the beauty of nature, or in a simple moment of gratitude. That peace you felt as a child wasn't a fleeting experience, it was a revelation, a reminder that the same force that holds the stars in the sky and the earth in its orbit also holds you. It's a sign that you are not separate from the divine, but an integral part of it. Those childhood moments of unexplainable peace weren't just memories, they were a calling. They were proof that you were chosen, not to live a life of constant striving and struggle, but to embody the stillness and serenity that come from knowing you are a part of something greater. They were an invitation to carry that peace forward, to live it, to share it, and to let it guide you back to the divine essence that has always been within you. As a child, there were moments when you felt an unspoken awareness of something greater, a sense of the interconnectedness of all things. It wasn't something you learned or were told, it was something you simply felt. An instinctive knowing that everything in the world was connected by an invisible thread. You may not have had the words to explain it, but it was there, deep within you, like a quiet truth waiting to be discovered. This awareness wasn't a coincidence, it was a sign, a reflection of the divine essence within you, and proof that your life was intertwined with a higher purpose. Perhaps you noticed it in the way nature seemed to move in harmony. The way birds flew in perfect synchrony, how the wind whispered through the trees, or how the rain seemed to bring life to everything it touched. You felt that these weren't random occurrences, but part of a greater design, a sacred dance that you too were a part of. This awareness wasn't just about observing the world, it was about feeling deeply connected to it, as though your soul resonated with the rhythm of life itself. There may have been moments when this awareness manifested as empathy. You could feel the emotions of others, not just understand them, but truly feel them as if they were your own. When a friend was sad, it wasn't just their sadness, it became yours. When someone was joyful, their happiness seemed to light you up from within. This sensitivity wasn't a weakness, it was a gift. It was your spirit recognizing that we are all part of the same whole, that what happens to one affects us all. This awareness might also have shown up in your capacity for wonder and awe. Looking at a sunset, a flower, or even a simple ant carrying its load, you felt a deep reverence. You understood, without needing to be told, that these moments and creatures were not separate from you, but part of the same divine creation. It was as though your soul could see the invisible threads connecting all things, reminding you that everything in existence is sacred. As you grew, you may have found yourself drawn to big questions about life and existence. Why are we here? What is the purpose of it? All these weren't idle musings, they were the stirrings of a soul deeply aware of the interconnected nature of all things. You weren't just looking for answers, you were seeking to understand your place within the grand tapestry of life. This search for meaning was another sign of your connection to the divine, proof that you were chosen to explore the mysteries of existence in a way that few others do. Sometimes this awareness might have felt overwhelming. Feeling so deeply connected to the world meant that its beauty could bring you immense joy, but its pain could also weigh heavily on you. You might have felt the suffering of others as if it were your own, and the injustices of the world may have seemed unbearable at times. But even this was a sign of your divine calling. To feel deeply is to be alive, and to be alive is to be part of the infinite web of existence. Even now, as you reflect on those childhood moments, you can sense that this awareness hasn't left you. It may have been buried under the noise and busyness of life, but it's still there, waiting for you to reconnect with it. This sense of interconnectedness wasn't just a passing phase, it was a reminder of who you truly are, a part of something infinite, eternal and divine. This awareness was never about separating you from others or elevating you above them. It was about showing you that you are not alone, that you are part of a greater whole. It was a call to live in harmony with the world, to honor the sacred connections that bind us all together. To recognize this interconnectedness is to step into your divine purpose, to understand that your actions, your choices, and your very being ripple out into the world in ways you may never fully see. Those childhood moments of awareness were not accidents. They were signs, whispers from the universe reminding you of your place in the grand design. They were proof that you were chosen to carry this awareness forward, to live a life guided by compassion, connection, and a deep reverence for all that is. And in honoring this sacred truth, you honor the divine essence within yourself and within everything around you.
You see, there comes a peculiar moment in every soul's life when the noise of the world begins to sound like static, meaningless chatter, a kind of spiritual interference. And it is precisely here, in the hollow hush of solitude, that the chosen are born, not through effort or ambition, but by awakening. You do not become chosen by force. You remember that you were chosen all along. Most people, some 80% if we must quantify it, cling desperately to the illusion of togetherness, of the crowd, of approval. They are trained to follow the script, work, worry, consume, repeat. But the chosen, they wander into solitude like monks entering a silent temple. And in that silence something extraordinary happens. A kind of divine alchemy begins. In solitude they do not wither. They ignite. They begin to develop powers that are not of the world but of the soul, powers so subtle, so profound, that others can sense them but not quite name them. These are not tricks or talents, they are transformations. Supernatural, not because they are unnatural, but because they come from beyond the ego's noisy world. 1. The first power the chosen develop in solitude is the ability to see through illusion, what some might call spiritual discernment, but it's more than that. It's the realization that the world, as it is commonly perceived, is not solid, not fixed, not entirely real in the way we've been told. You begin to see the masks people wear, not just on their faces, but on their identities, their ambitions, their fears. In the silence of solitude, the chosen no longer chase appearances. They perceive essence. They notice the subtle energies behind words, the hollowness behind smiles, the anxiety hidden beneath laughter. This is not cynicism, it's clarity. It is not judging the world as wrong, but seeing it for what it is, a stage, a dance of shadows, and a test of perception. And this seeing, it changes everything. You no longer respond to life the way you once did. When someone insults you, you feel the pain behind their voice. When someone boasts, you see the trembling ego beneath the surface. This is why the chosen seem unbothered, even untouchable. They are not detached in arrogance, they are simply no longer fooled. They do not get caught in the web of other people's illusions, because they have stared into the mirror of their own. This power is born only in solitude, when the distractions are stripped away. For most, silence is unbearable. They need the noise to drown out the echo of the eternal. But the chosen sit in silence long enough to begin hearing something else. The sound beneath the sound. The eternal rhythm, the cosmic whisper, the truth that has always been there, waiting patiently for attention. And once heard, it cannot be unheard. Once seen, the illusion cannot hold them again. With this power, life becomes less reactive, more poetic. You stop trying to fix others because you understand they are still dreaming. You do not shout at the sleeping for not waking. You simply become a light, a presence, an invitation. That is the difference between force and grace. The chosen are graceful not because they have practiced etiquette, but because they have become deeply aware of the invisible currents guiding human behavior. They have seen the roots, so they are no longer distracted by the leaves. In a world addicted to surfaces, this power is dangerous, because the moment you stop being deceived, you stop being controlled. The advertisements no longer seduce you. The opinions of others lose their grip. You are no longer hooked by praise or afraid of criticism. You are, in the deepest sense, free. And it is precisely this freedom that unsettles the world. The chosen, in solitude, become untethered from the illusion, and in doing so, they carry a quiet power that radiates far beyond words. This power cannot be taught in schools, nor inherited, nor borrowed. It must be discovered alone, in the stillness, in the wilderness, in that sacred place where you finally realize that what most call reality is only the first veil. The second supernatural power the chosen develop in solitude is mastery over their internal state, what might be called emotional sovereignty. It is the ability to remain calm in the center of chaos, unmoved by the storms that rage around them. This does not mean the chosen become cold or indifferent. On the contrary, they feel deeply, but they are no longer ruled by those feelings. They do not resist emotions, nor do they become possessed by them. Instead, they observe, they allow, and in that allowance they transcend. Most people are prisoners of their emotions, reacting without awareness, tossed about by moods and triggers like leaves in the wind. They live at the mercy of what happens to them. But the chosen, through solitude, begin to realize something profound, that emotions are not directives, they are data, signals, invitations to awareness, and with that realization comes liberation. When anger arises, they don't lash out. When sadness visits, they don't drown in it. They watch, listen, understand. They allow the emotion to pass through them without letting it define them. This ability creates an inner spaciousness that is rare and radiant. You can feel it when you're near them. It's as if nothing can shake them from their center. This power is not stoicism in the modern, performative sense. It is not about suppressing emotion, nor pretending to be unaffected. Rather, it's about creating an inner sanctuary where all feelings can be held without fear. It's about transforming the mind from a battlefield into a temple. This transformation only begins when you are alone long enough to meet yourself in your rawest form, without distraction, without performance, without applause. In solitude, the chosen confront the fullness of their inner landscape, and they make peace with it. All the repressed rage, the unhealed wounds, the forgotten dreams, these rise like old ghosts, not to torment, but to be seen, forgiven, and released. And once you've done that inner work, once you've touched the fire of your own suffering and sat still within it, you begin to carry a different frequency. People sense it. They may not know why they feel safe around you, or why your presence calms their nervous system, but it's there. You no longer leak emotional chaos into the world. You radiate stability. This is what makes the chosen different. While others seek to control the external, the chosen have mastered the internal. And so, paradoxically, they become more powerful in the external world because they are not reacting to it blindly. Solitude, then, becomes the forge of emotional mastery. It strips away distraction and forces you to meet yourself, not the curated self, but the real one, and in doing so it offers you a gift, the realization that peace is not something you find, but something you generate from within. The world may try to provoke you, insult you, tempt you, or scare you, but when you've learned to govern your own inner weather, you become like a mountain in the wind, still, solid, and unshakably free. The third supernatural power that the chosen develop in solitude is the awakening of intuitive knowing, a deep inner guidance that surpasses logic, calculation, and even experience. It is the return of the forgotten language of the soul. In a world dominated by reason, where every step must be justified and every move explained, Intuition is treated as unreliable, even dangerous, but to the chosen it becomes the most trustworthy compass they possess. This is not the impulsive voice of emotion, nor the echo of conditioned thought. It is quieter than thought, older than memory, and it only becomes audible when the noise dies down. Solitude is the sacred silence that allows this voice to be heard. When you are alone, truly alone, your mind at first will panic. It will search for distractions, for problems to solve, for stories to tell. But if you remain still, if you wait long enough, a new kind of perception begins to emerge. It's not based on deduction or planning. It's a sudden knowing. You feel it in your bones, you sense it in your chest. It comes without justification, but carries a certainty that no argument can match. This intuitive knowing becomes a quiet superpower. The chosen begin to sense the right direction without needing a map. They walk away from situations that look perfect on paper, but feel wrong in the soul. They move toward paths that seem uncertain, yet pulse with unseen purpose, and because they follow this inner compass, their lives often look strange to others. They seem to move against the current, to make choices that defy convention. But in time, those choices lead them to places logic could never have taken them. The intuitive mind is not a tool you can force. It blooms only when the conditions are right, when the external voices fade, when the inner chatter slows, and when you are not trying to be anything other than what you are. That's why solitude is essential. The crowd demands you explain yourself. Solitude asks nothing but your attention. And in that space, the chosen discover a guidance system that never lies. This intuitive clarity also makes the chosen difficult to manipulate. They can feel the hidden agenda beneath a polished smile. They know when someone is speaking truth or merely performing it. They sense betrayal before it happens, not because they are paranoid, but because their perception is tuned to a frequency most ignore. While others get lost in appearances, the chosen navigate by resonance, and this power, once awakened, never truly leaves. It becomes a lifelong companion, a sacred whisper in the wilderness of the world. It protects without armor, guides without maps, and speaks with a wisdom older than time. The chosen walk with this inner knowing, not because it guarantees an easy life, but because it is the only voice that tells the truth when all others contradict it. In solitude, this power awakens, and once it does, the chosen are never truly lost again. The fourth supernatural power the chosen develop in solitude is creative transmutation, the ability to turn pain, confusion, and chaos into beauty, insight, and meaning. This is not merely the act of creating art, though it often manifests that way. It is the deeper capacity to alchemize suffering, to take what most would try to escape and transform it into something sacred. In the silence of solitude, when there is nowhere to hide, the chosen are forced to sit with the raw materials of their inner world. And it is here that the process begins. Most people try to avoid their wounds. They bury them beneath distractions, cover them with productivity, or numb them with pleasure. But the chosen, having nowhere to run in solitude, learn to turn toward their pain. They look directly at the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss. Not as victims, but as witnesses. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin to ask, "What is this here to teach me?" That shift changes everything. Because once pain becomes a teacher, it becomes sacred. And what is sacred must be honored, not hidden. This honoring takes the form of creation, not always with a canvas or a pen, but with one's life. The chosen begin to shape their experience into something meaningful. A poem, a gesture, a way of walking through the world that carries with it the wisdom earned through suffering. They become, in a way, living art. Their presence tells a story not of perfection but of transfiguration. They carry their scars not as evidence of defeat, but as symbols of strength. Like gold veins running through broken pottery, made more beautiful by their mending. Solitude offers the space for this transformation because it removes the noise of comparison. In the world, creativity is often polluted by competition, by the need to impress or monetize. But in solitude there is no audience. There is only the sacred dialogue between soul and source, and in that quiet space something miraculous begins to emerge, the authentic voice, the one not shaped by trends or approval, the voice that has something real to say. And once the chosen discover that voice, they become impossible to imitate, because their creativity flows not from the surface, but from the deep well of being. This power also gives the chosen a profound resilience. They no longer fear the dark nights of the soul, because they know those nights contain the seeds of their next evolution. They do not panic in the face of suffering, because they have learned how to turn it into something worthwhile. In this way, the chosen become not just survivors of hardship, but stewards of transformation. They carry the medicine they have brewed in solitude, and when they re-enter the world they bring it with them, not as doctrine but as presence. This is why being around the chosen feels different. They've turned their pain into wisdom, their silence into song, their solitude into strength. And that strength is not loud, but it is unforgettable. The fifth supernatural power the chosen develop in solitude is communion with the divine, not through doctrine, ritual, or belief, but through direct experience. It is the profound awareness that they are not alone and never have been. In solitude, when all the roles have been dropped, when the mind has exhausted its arguments and the heart has emptied its longings, a presence begins to emerge, not outside but within. It does not speak in language, yet it communicates more clearly than any voice. It is not seen with the eyes, yet it is more real than anything visible. This is not a God you are taught to believe in. This is not faith in the traditional sense. It is knowing. A deep, soul-level recognition of unity with something infinitely wise, gentle, and vast. While most people seek this connection through intermediaries, religious leaders, sacred texts, or institutions, the chosen encounter it in the sacred silence of being alone. They do not arrive at it through formulas or commandments, but through surrender. Not the kind of surrender that implies defeat, but the surrender that means letting go of everything false, all identities, all fears, all striving. And in that emptiness they become full of something ancient, something eternal, something loving beyond comprehension. This experience changes them permanently. It doesn't make them better than others, but it makes them different. They stop fearing death, not because they have conquered it, but because they have touched something beyond it. They begin to walk through life with a softness and a steadiness that others can feel. Their ego no longer sits at the center of the story. They become vessels, instruments of something higher. Their actions, their words, even their silences begin to carry a resonance of that divine connection. This is not about being holy in the traditional sense. The chosen may look entirely ordinary on the outside. They may speak plainly, dress simply, and move quietly, but when they are around, something shifts. The air feels different, you feel seen, you feel safe, you feel close to the sacred without knowing why. Solitude is the gateway to this power, because it removes the distractions that block communion. When you are no longer performing for others, when you are no longer trying to prove your worth, when you have tired of your own thoughts and outgrown your old desires, you begin to hear the whisper. That has always been calling. That whisper becomes a conversation. That conversation becomes a relationship. And that relationship becomes the center of your life. The chosen do not need to convince anyone of what they've experienced. They carry it in their being. Their peace becomes their proof. Their compassion becomes their testimony. Their inner light becomes their authority. And in a world starving for the sacred, they become reminders, walking invitations to return to the source. Not through belief, but through stillness, not through struggle but through surrender. This is the final power, to become one with what has never been separate.